Warning, this radio program has been rated R for ridiculous. All listeners must be accompanied by their spirit guides.
You're listening to Haunted Voices Radio.
This is Lisa Williams, and you're listening to Haunted Voices Radio with Todd Bates.
This is paranormal researcher Gavin Goska, and you're listening to Haunted Voices Radio on the Haunted Voices Radio Network.
This is Joshua P. Warren with Speaking of Strange, and you are listening to none other than Todd Bates on Haunted Voices Radio.
This is Matthew Schultz from Para Explorer Project aboard the Haunted Queen Mary. Leave your closed mind at the door. You have entered Paranormally Entertaining Radio. Haunted Voices with Todd Bates and Phil Roll.
Symptoms of regular listening include developing a succubus complex, if male, loose bowels in high EMF environments, daytime old hag syndrome, throwing objects back at poltergeists, visitations from dead relatives collecting outstanding debts, unwanted or wanted sexual advances from unseen hands, volunteering for alien anal probing. Consult your physician before starting any paranormal program.
Welcome to Haunted Voices Radio. Haunted Voices Radio brings you education, comedy, and information from top instructors, authors, and performers in the field of the paranormal. Join Todd and Phil each week to discover tricks of the trade that will help you to develop your craft and prosper as a paranormal investigator. It has never been easier to listen and interact from the privacy of your own home. This is truly a program you won't find anywhere else. Now, here are the hosts of Haunted Voices Radio, Todd Bates and Phil Roll.
From the land beyond, from the world past hope and fear.
And a good evening, one and all. Haunted Voices Radio Live, WGOG Digital Broadcasting, hauntedvoices.com. That's where you want to be right now. Chat room is open. Get your derrieres in there. Don't just sit on your duffs and think about it. Just do it. Be a part of the solution here. We definitely need you in chat. And you can sign in through Facebook, Twitter as a guest. We got an amazing show. Whoa. We're going to be discussing the Church of Satan with Reverend Raul Antony. And second hour, we're going to be discussing the moon landing hoax. Was it a hoax? Was it a Hollywood set? Or was it real? Marcus Allen's going to be telling us that of Nexus magazine. That's coming up second hour. And of course, first hour, we're going to be discussing Church of Satan. But not before we do some catching up and give you guys some updates. We've kind of been on hiatus here for a few weeks. Had some tech difficulties, and then, well, personal things happen. But the good thing is, Phil and I are here now, and Phil blew up his computer, so he's coming in via satellite phone now. How you doing, Phil?
Yeah. Oh, always something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you've always been technically challenged, but it's all right. Now, we got some cool announcements.
Only when I'm not using my own computer. I'm going to defend myself here.
Defend thyself.
Yes, I'm not using my own computer, so I'm getting kicked in the butt here.
That's okay. The thing is, you're here. That's what's important. And, of course, we want to welcome everybody in chat and do apologize for the little hiatus there. We got our things in gear here. We're ready to go. Got some great shows playing here for you. Beverly's been working hard with some great guests. If you guys want to see the full lineup, just visit the website, hauntedvoices.com. You're going to see all the guests there that we have coming up. I try to keep that as up to date as possible. We got the next few weeks up there. You'll see the schedule and all that fun stuff. And guess what they're also going to see on there, Phil?
What's that?
Really? It's out. It's alive. Haunted Voices magazine.
Oh, that thing, yeah.
Yeah, the magazine, Phil. Yeah, you're still not taking the medicine sent to you. Yeah, it's out there.
No, actually, I looked at it, I read through it, and I congratulated Bev on her fantastic editing.
She did a lot of work on that.
Now, if people can't stand the sound of our voices, they can read all this stuff.
Mm-hmm. And you can find that all over the website. I mean, there's direct download PDF. There's a direct link. There's 3 different places on the website. It's free. I think the next issue is coming out in December. I think she's doing it like that. Is that quarterly? I don't know the fraction. I suck at math.
Let's see, what month is this? Today's August 1st.
August 1st, 2017.
Oh, damn. The rent's going to be due pretty soon. Yeah, August, so October, November. Yeah, quarterly, every 3 months.
Yeah.
I'm getting it. I'm just having a bad time here because we got bugs at our house, too.
Bugs? Like bed bugs?
Yeah. No, these little tiny, I've only seen like 6 of them. Little tiny black bugs. They're like maybe, a match head, say a quarter of the size of a match. They're tiny. And I'll just see one on the wall. And if I reach up to touch it, it flies.
What the hell? Are those dung beetles?
No, they're little tiny things. You can barely see them. Like I said, they're like maybe the quarter of the size of a match head.
Like those little dog pecker nets?
I've only seen like 5 of them. So it's not, terrible, but I'm all freaked out because that got me going. I started thinking about reading the thing about how when you sleep, during your lifetime sleeping with your mouth open, you'll probably swallow, 25 spiders or something.
At least.
And that got me going and thinking about, dust mites in your bed. Everybody has them. They're microscopic, but they're there. Now I just itch all over,
Did you call an exterminator or something?
No, because there's only been like 5 of them. I've never seen them before. So it might just be that, it's that time of the year where there's some kind of little bug. Or, my wife bought some bananas, and how those little flying bugs will get around bananas. Maybe she bought some bananas that have those little things.
Yeah, those would be fruit flies.
But now I'm all freaked.
Fruit flies.
Yeah, now I'm all freaked out.
All right. Well, yeah, they're probably crawling all over you at night, getting in all your little nooks and crannies. You feel
That's what I mean.
A little itchy all over?
Yeah, I itch, but when I look, there's nothing there.
It could be the scabies.
So I think I need a Valium or something, morphine or something.
Yeah, get you a little morphine. Yeah, sure, that'll just make them, that'll make it even better. Then you'll start to loosen it even more. Good plan, Phil. Yeah, that's a great plan.
Well, I just remember years and years ago, I had to have back surgery, and after the surgery, I had pain, so they would give me a shot of morphine.
Right.
And there was one of those old-fashioned clocks on the wall with a little second hand that just kind of went click, 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 click around. I lay there and watch that clock and watch that little second hand going around and just have the time of my life.
So you kind of flipped out a little bit?
Well, no. The morphine just made life great.
Huh.
I had the time of my life watching that little second hand click around on that clock. So maybe to get rid of the bugs, I need a good shot of morphine.
Yeah, whatever floats your boat there, Slickum. Maybe your house just needs an exorcism. Because we
got something like that going on too, but that's a whole other story. We don't have time for that. I've been getting phone calls from somebody who thinks their house is haunted.
Well, look.
And the phone calls have gotten to the point where it's almost harassment.
I know.
Phone calls and text messages.
I know you didn't want to disclose this publicly, okay? But I feel that this is a safe area. Now, our audience, they're phenomenal. They're open-minded, and you and Diane, you got a new cat. It was about a month and a half ago. And I know, you sent me something. You wanted me to listen to it. You couldn't believe it. What happened to this cat? But
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I know she's
welcome to my world.
I know she's better now. That's what's important. But I guess it was hell on earth there. And what you name this cat something original like Fluffy, right?
Yeah,
Fluffy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
she's got a lot of fur, so
I know.
Seemed to fit.
I know you're a little embarrassed about the whole thing, but do you mind if I share what you sent to me to kind of listen and analyze for you? Do you mind if we share that with the audience? I mean, is that okay with you?
No, go ahead and play it. Yeah, this went on, and some people found out about it and wanted to come in and film some things, and we let them do it.
So you just So, I mean, this is probably going to air on some television program here soon. One of the networks is going to pick it up. It's a crazy story, folks. It really is. But
it could be, yeah. But I said I got first rights, and since it's radio, you only hear the audio. But,
right. So you're still under the gag order, so to speak. So it's fine. It's just audio. You can't see it, which is what everyone wants to do.
Just from the audio, it's pretty easy to know what's going on.
Yeah, and some of this may be disturbing to young listeners out there. So parental discretion is advised. This is something that happened at Phil's place with their little feline friend there. We're going to go ahead and air this for public knowledge. That way, for all you cat owners out there, just keep your eye out and be careful. Here you go, folks.
In August of 1974, Fluffy was a normal, average cat. But later that year, his owners began to notice a change. Something was wrong with Fluffy.
God love Fluffy. That had to have been...
That was a rough time.
A horrible ordeal. I'm just glad. I'm glad that she's all better now. So that's something you guys can look forward to coming up here on... I'm sure one of the major networks is going to offer, Phil and Diane millions of dollars for that story. The poor cat. Yeah, it was just
Well, the weird thing, I was horrified, but I was horrified by it all, but at the same time, to see that poor little cat tied down to the bed, and, you know.
It is.
Someone to start saying, you know, Mother's in here with us. You know,
it's awful.
I'm out of here again.
It's awful.
It was a bad time.
And the things that thing did in the litter box, that's unholy in itself. It's just unreal. I don't know. I mean, did you maybe try a seance or something to see what the demon wanted inside of there, or nothing? You guys didn't go that far? Because I know you've had some luck with that in the past.
Yeah, no, we just went, you know, like I said, when the cat's head started turning around in circles and stuff, that's it, you know. Head to the nearest church and try to talk to somebody.
Yeah, because I remember back in the day, you know, you and I were invited to this. It was a big conference. They had like a seance there. I think there was what was his name? Dr. Go something. I can't remember his name. He wasn't bad. Let me see if I can find that real quick here. He did like Elvis or something, I think, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, that guy. That's the guy. Yeah, we were trying to get a hold of him for the show and everything, and we did get this audio. Yeah, of the seance.
Let me do a search for Elvis here and see if I can see here. Yeah, I got that. Yeah, it's the Elvis seance.
Yeah,
no, this was pretty cool. He was pretty spot on.
They did a seance trying to contact Elvis, and
he was pretty spot on with it.
They got him, but
yeah, it was a little mouthy,
Elvis,
if I remember. Yeah,
didn't seem to be in a very good mood.
No, he's a little upset, if I can remember right. I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and share this with the audience too. What do you think of this, folks? This is an Elvis seance. I mean, amazing stuff here. Check it out.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jack Clott, and we're here tonight to speak to the spirit of the king of rock and roll, Mr. Elvis Aaron Presley.
That's Aaron.
Excuse me?
It's Aaron, not Aaron.
Oh, yes, of course. Mr. Elvis Aaron Presley. With us tonight is famed medium Percy Gonadi.
That's Gonadi.
Excuse me?
It's Gonadi.
Of course. Well, I believe we should begin. If we can lower the lights and all hold hands.
Oh, yes, let's hold hands.
There we are. Nice low lights. And now as I call for Mr. Presley, Mr. Gonadi.
It's Gonadi?
Yes, Mr. Gonadi will begin to enter a trance state. We'd like to speak with Mr. Presley. If you could come to us and make your presence known, you can enter Mr. Gonadi.
Oh, yes, you can.
Mr. Gonadi, if you'll begin to enter your trance state. Mr. Presley, are you with us? We're here to talk to you. We're here to speak with you, sir. If you would come to us.
I believe he fell asleep, Mr. Klein.
Mr. Gonadi. Mr. Gonadi.
Huh? Mommy.
You fell asleep, sir. Coffee?
Oh, no, I don't drink coffee. I take a frappe if you had one.
I think we only have coffee.
Well, then no thanks.
You ready to try it again?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Presley, are you with us? Mr. Presley, are you with us?
Hey, man.
Where are you now, sir?
The crapper.
Excuse me for intruding. How long have you been there?
Huh? My God, man. How long have I been here?
Can you please tell us the circumstances surrounding your passing?
Bugs.
Excuse me?
Bugs.
What kind of bugs?
Look, man, do I look like an ichthyologist to you? Big damn bugs, all right? The size of my fist, size of a peanut butter banana sandwich, man. I was in bed first, and then I was awake because the damn bugs woke me up, all right?
You seem a little bitter.
What do I care? I got a growth in my picker. Damn. I hadn't had a heart-on in years.
Excuse me?
You got ding-dongs, man?
No, sir, I don't have any ding-dongs.
I'll take a Baby Ruth.
I'm sorry, no Baby Ruths either.
Say what? Damn.
Can I ask you about Priscilla? Was she truly the love of your life?
20 years ago, just 20, man. I could have made with a curly lip smile and had her eaten out of my ass.
Well, Mr. Presley, you're shocking me a little.
Why didn't fame hold off old age and death? Why the hell did I leave the fame in the first place? And do I want it back, and could I have it back? And if I could, would it make any damn difference?
Excuse me? Well, I see that Mr. Gonati seems to be coming out of it, so I believe this seance is coming to an end.
Come on now.
This is Jack Klott.
Oh, there's an ugly son, Major.
And we hope you enjoyed this.
President Kennedy was a white man.
Good evening.
That's it. What do I care? I got a growth on my face.
Yeah, he was a little bit cranky there. Elvis Presley. Interesting stuff, though. You got to love it, folks. And you're going to love our next guest as well. Reverend Raul Antony of the Church of Satan is going to be joining us here in just a few moments. Get into chat, hauntedvoices.com. If you guys are on the go, on the mobile or tablet, you can listen to us via TuneIn. And you can find that by searching WGOG-DB. And you can listen on your mobile devices, all that. Church of Satan, Reverend Raul Antony. Coming up next, Haunted Voices Radio Live right here, WGOG Digital Broadcasting, hauntedvoices.com. That's a place to be. We'll be right back.
WGOG DB Clearwater. Get lost in the realm of thrilling mystery with the Mojo series by Chris Cedarstein. Follow 6 small-town teenagers who decide to make a ghost hunting documentary and become blindly thrown into a world of haunting chills they were not expecting in Lost Mojo. Or follow college student Scotty Brown, who is aggressively haunted by vivid nightmares and daytime apparitions. As he begins to search for answers, he puts himself and those closest to him face to face with pure evil. Can he defeat these malevolent beings with a small team of paranormal investigators? Find out in her second title, Mojo. The Mojo series is available on paperback or digital download on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold. The Mojo series by Chris Cedarstein. Get your copies today if you've got the Mojo. Haunted, a psychic story by author and radio host Ariel Grace. This is not your average book of hauntings. Haunted, a psychic story is written from a psychic perspective and contains true stories and some handy tips. Written in 3 parts, Haunted, a psychic story contains chilling adventures, advice from the archangels, and helpful tips used by Ariel Grace to clear haunted homes around the globe. Haunted, a psychic story is available on Amazon, or you can download straight to your Kindle. Haunted, a psychic story by Ariel Grace. Get your copy today. There are thousands of health and beauty products on the market these days. But how many can you say are truly natural? The name says it all. And Naturally by Darla is here to humbly serve, guide, and help to heal all individuals seeking a more natural way of living. NaturallyByDarla.com provides a wide variety of products and services like essential oils, soaps, balms and salves, powerful mists, and ancient healing techniques. Curious yet? We thought so, and invite you to visit our website, naturallybydarla.com, or call 847-334-1580. That's 847-334-1580. naturallybydarla.com. Humbly serving for over 10 years. Naturally.
23 minutes past the hour. Haunted Voices Radio Live, right here, WGOG Digital Broadcasting, folks. My goodness, do we have an amazing segment here for you. Our guest this evening, Reverend Raul Antony, the Church of Satan. We're going to get into a lot of great things here, so you definitely want to join us in chat. And if you have any questions, just post those in capital letters with a QQ in front of them. And, of course, we'll get them to our guest here tonight. You can enter the chat, hauntedvoices.com. Just click on the live chat button, and you are right in there. It's that simple. You can log in through Facebook, Twitter, as a guest, however you like. Just go ahead and get in there. It's very important because we're going to be covering a lot of great topics here with our guests, so definitely want to keep an ear open for it. And again, our guest this evening, Reverend Raul Antony. And as an explorer of outside culture, Raul Antony has been writing and podcasting since 2004. Now, he's currently a journalist and podcast producer for Heathen Harvest. He's a DJ at Radio Free Satan and Reverend for the Church of Satan. Now, as a satanic priest, he's been interviewed on podcasts, radio, and international TV covering Satanism and the history of the Church of Satan. So welcome to the show, Reverend. Great to have you.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Wow. Now, the Church of Satan. Now, the first thing we have to cover is the history of it, what it is, and, of course, what got you involved with it. So what is it?
Well, the Church of Satan was founded by Anton LaVey in 1966. When he was, at the time, he was exploring the occult and ceremonial magic and things like that, and he was having these gatherings at his home. And over time, they became to be called the Magic Circle. This was a group of friends, associates that he would have over for lectures and study sessions and things like that as he explored the unknown. And this was prior to the forming of the Church of Satan. But over time, like as he studied Satanism, he realized that there was not a formulated philosophy or religion under that name. Prior to 1966, Satanism has always been just something that you accused somebody of. Mm-hmm. And there are some rare moments in history where people have taken on that title and as a devil worshiper or during the Romantic literary era, as a literary device, right? Just a symbol of rebellion and such. But it was still in the context of Christianity. A lot of those authors were Christians, or even if they were somewhat secular, but they were not just full-fledged Satanists. Okay. And so Anton LaVey decided to actually formulate the philosophy, take it outside of the Christian theology, right? And he made it a secular, carnal religion based on his background in reading Nietzsche and reading Milton and various authors, Ayn Rand and several others, these individualistic authors, these writers who embraced the material world. And that was his idea with Satanism, is if we take the idea away from Christian cosmology and Christian theology, well, what would that look like, right? How can you have Satan without God is a question we always get. Mm-hmm. Well, to us, Satan is that symbol of carnal living, of being the Lord of this earth, right? It's a rejection of the spiritual and embracing pride, ego, all those sins that we're told we should be guilty of and try to shun and hide. We as Satanists embrace those things. So the Church of Satan was formed out of that idea as a organization, a loose-knit cabal. This is not like a traditional church where we have like weekly gatherings or anything like that, but this is kind of like a loose organization of individuals who stand on their own, but we may collaborate with each other from time to time. We may share ideas. We may brainstorm, have little think tank groups about certain things that we may agree with. Being a Satanist, we are highly individualistic, so we're not guaranteed to get along with each other. So we take these kind of things on a case-by-case basis, on an individual basis.
That's interesting, because I mean, if you open your arms and you definitely welcome and encourage things like the seven deadly sins, the pride, the gluttony, mm-hmm. all those kinds of things, ego, and I mean, it would be extremely difficult for any of you to get along because the egos would get in the way.
Yeah, I mean, we temper things like, we say things like, gluttony is balanced by ego, and pride, wrath, and things like that is all balanced with rational self-interest, right? You can only push those things so far before they become self-destructive, right? And we also know that man is a social animal, right? So we do understand that, and we do have things like rituals and ceremonies where we get together with others of like mind. But we just don't require it, whereas a church says, okay, you must attend church every Sunday. Okay. You must attend these congregational things. We don't do that. These meetings are at your own leisure, at your own interest, and based on those individuals that you have things in common beyond Satanism.
Interesting. Now, to get this out of the way, so, I mean, does the church itself, do you guys worship Lucifer, as your savior or what have you, to get that out of the way?
Well, no, absolutely not. Okay. We don't worship anything, first of all, and we see ourselves as our own gods. So, again, going back to the whole egoism idea of Satanism, is it's like the ultimate blasphemy, right? It's one thing to say, oh, we know there's a God out there, we just accept the evil version of that God. It's like, no, we don't accept any of it. Good. We reject it all, and we place ourselves at the center of the universe, of our own subjective universes.
And I'm so glad you clarified.
So you're atheist. You don't believe in any God,
exactly,
or any supreme being.
Yeah, definitely atheistic. We like to say atheists because the God concept is actually very important. The God concept, the Godhead, that idea is actually powerful. It's a powerful metaphor, and we don't want to throw that away. Atheists tend to just have a knee-jerk reaction to anything with the G word, right? So we actually utilize that idea of God, of religion, of ritual, ceremony. We do believe that those are an important part of the human experience, and they're an important part of American culture, just religion and godhood. So, but we accept it on our own terms as centers of our own universe, and we will use the symbol of Satan, of Lucifer, of Baal, of any of these demons, and even across other cultures, right? Supe from the Incan mythology, or Loki from wherever, Loki from the Norse gods, or any other religion. We will recycle, I want to say recycle, but we will embrace those symbols that we resonate with, knowing that these are all mythologies, right? So we can use them in the best way that makes sense for us individually, right? So I know some Satanists that conduct rituals and ceremonies completely based on the Norse mythologies, or they may be interested in the Mexican mythologies, Aztec mythologies, or any other. I know actually a couple I was talking to who are interested in the Asian mythologies and incorporating that is something you don't hear about very often, right. But so they're interested in looking into that and incorporating that into their symbolism. So we don't worship any of these things, right? We just use those symbols and help us capture these emotions, these feelings, these abstract thoughts, and visualize it, present it in a ritual or in art and music in ways that are part of just the human experience since the dawn of time.
Well said. And I mean, I'm just throwing this little bit out there, but it sounds like the ultimate guy church with pride and ego being in there. It sounds like the ultimate male.
Well, I mean, it's very feminine in a way too.
Do you have a lot of women? I mean, that are a part of the church. You have a lot of females that are really. Absolutely,
yeah. One of Anton LaVey's most important books actually was The Satanic Witch, and that actually, and I was actually talking to some people about this, that is probably his most original and most important book. There's a lot to be said about some of his essay collections, which were Satan Speaks and The Devil's Notebook, which were compilations of essays he put out in magazines and newsletters. And there's the Satanic Bible and the Satanic Rituals, which are fundamental, right? But he borrowed from a lot of other sources for those materials. But the Satanic Witch is completely original. And I think it's actually his most dense in terms of philosophy, and a lot of people think, well, just for women it's called The Satanic Witch, but there's a lot of insight in psychology, sociology, human behavior, human interaction, and he cherished his satanic witches. He all the women that were involved in his rituals, they were and for empowerment, right? They embrace their sexuality, their femininity as a means for empowerment and satisfaction, self-satisfaction, right? Rather than, being obedient to somebody else, right? It's that was never a part of his philosophy. He always wanted these individuals to take his philosophy and make their lives better, and not feel guilty about it. I think that was a big thing, especially, we look back at it now in hindsight. We understand like the time that he was around, there was a lot of ideas about letting go of the ego, becoming selfless, joining hand in hand with everyone in the world, and letting loose and dissolving the ego. Whereas Satanism was right in the face of all that. It was no, empower your ego, be your own God, use your sexuality, use your femininity, in a secular way, it was very blasphemous.
Yeah, and it's night and day. I mean, of course, I'm a recovering Catholic myself, but it's night and day compared to other religions, and it's something that a lot of people, they're not aware of. That's why I'm glad that you came on here so we can educate them. I mean, growing up, were you born into like a Christian family, or what got you into the Church of Satan?
No, I was born in a Catholic family, well, loose Catholic. When things were tough, they'd light a candle and go to church, but we didn't go to church every Sunday. I did do the basic sacraments. I did do the communion and all that stuff. And I learned a lot about Catholicism and Christianity in general from my background. But raised in my household, I was given the ability to come to my own decision on things. When I first came out as an atheist, there was a little bit of, it was more, the issue was more about the family. It was, okay, will your grandmother be upset? It's kind of respecting the family. I was never that rebellious in that way. I respected my parents. I respected my grandparents very much. I was never trying to rebel against them. They never gave me any reason to rebel against them. Right. So this was just me coming to realization of what my own ideas were. So first I went through atheism, and then my friend, I was an early teenager, he introduced me to the Satanic Bible. And when I first came across it, I wasn't actually interested in it. I thought, oh, this is kind of cheesy. I don't know about that. And I put it aside. And it wouldn't be until a couple of years later when I got more interested in underground art and music in New York City. So when I was about 16 or so, I started to explore the counterculture, the occult, alternative journalism, alternative music, and all that stuff. And I came across Anton LaVey again. And I remembered, like, oh, this is what my friend introduced me to before. Let me look at it again. And I read through his material, the Satanic Bible, Satan Speaks. And actually, I also ran into The Black Flame, which is the Church of Satan's own printed magazine that they had running at the time. And I completely identified with it. For me, I thought, like, this was how I've been living my life, since I was able to come to terms with my own ideas. And it was funny because I contacted my friend who had first introduced me to Satanism a couple of years back, and he said, yeah, that's why I gave you that book. I was surprised you didn't take to it, but I had to come to it on my own. Like, I think a lot of people come to Satanism wanting to be Satanists. They want to be the S word, right? They want to shock. For me, it wasn't like that. I came to it as a realization of who I was, and you'll hear this often with other Satanists too. They see it as a mirror of themselves, and that's ideally the kind of situation we want to have people in. We say that Satanists are born, not made, right? So you don't convert somebody to Satanism. That's why we don't proselytize. We don't try to get people to join the Church of Satan, or we don't go around passing the Satanic Bible around or anything like that. It's like we have our material out there. We present it for people who are interested in it. We engage with the greater culture, obviously, but we're not interested in growing our members or anything like that.
Well, I mean, just out of curiosity, how many members does the church have at approximately?
Yeah, we don't actually disclose that, and it's kind of this old kind of motto. It's if you say it's too many, if it's too many, people will take us too seriously and try to squash us. If we say, and some people think it's too little, and they'll criticize us there. So you can't win with that kind of answer.
No worries. There's where the pride comes in.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Now with it,
Do you have a lot of problems with people who, because it's called the Church of Satan, that people just don't even want to know what you're about?
I mean, there's, in my personal life,
Were you talking about not letting people know how many members you have or anything? Because if there's too many, then you're liable to be harassed. So do you hit a lot of people that because that word Satan is in there, they just automatically consider you evil and
sure,
everything that's associated with Satan?
Yeah, and I think in a way that's a good filter. We like that in a way because we're not trying to attract everyone. So Satanism is not a universalist philosophy. We don't think that everyone in the world should be a Satanist if they only knew the truth of Satanism and came to Satanism, that the world would be a better place. It's not like that. At least me personally, I do see Satanists as an outsider identity. It's something that only a small percentage of people will really identify with and truly embrace, and we're okay with that. At the same time, we should still interact and engage with and influence the greater culture, and we do see members out there doing that. And in their path to doing that, they will encounter people who are afraid of the S word and come up with a lot of crazy ideas based on Christian fear-mongering, actually. So a lot of this stuff, all these worst fears about Satanists come from Christians or Muslims or other theists who tried to scare their flock into shape, right? And then we're comfortable with that. It's like, if you're scared of the S word, okay, stay where you are. We're not interested in bringing you over. I mean, we'll explain it if we're asked. We will explain it. We'll give you that information, but we're not trying to convince people of that. And
that's probably
because we do want to attract people who are into the darker aesthetic, into this kind of lifestyle. So that is part of it.
I respect that. No, I do. I really respect that. That you guys you're upfront about it. That's fantastic. And it's definitely nothing to be worried about or ashamed of, which I know you're not. I mean, it's to each their own. Everybody, it's choice. It's free will. We all have it. One more question here. We're going to skip off to a little breather here in a second. But what's your position on the supernatural versus the supernormal?
It's good wording there, because we do see that there's stuff about the human experience we don't completely understand yet, and we do leave that door open for Satanists to explore. But we also acknowledge that these things are still part of the human experience. They're still part of the material world that we may not completely understand yet. So we like to use the term supernormal versus supernatural, right? And the supernatural implies that it's outside of the natural world, right? Something metaphysical, something spiritual, or transcendental, which we don't accept. At a fundamental philosophical level, we don't accept that. If our members are interested in studying that and exploring that and seeing, if there is something to it, they're free to do that. We don't knock on people's doors and say, you cannot read this, you can't read that. You're free to explore what you want, but keep a skeptical, rational mind to things. Understand that there is a subjective experience to the objective world. So a lot of our ceremonies and rituals, which we can talk about later, are about that, is about manipulating our subjective experience. And it could be a very powerful thing. And for some people, they take it very objectively, and they try to convince others that what they experience is what everyone should experience. And that's not necessarily the case. We call that solipsism. So we need to be careful of that.
Wow. I mean, there's so many different aspects, and the stereotypes out there. People are being educated with this. That's the thing, is a lot of them are waking up and realizing this isn't what they thought it was. And of course, that's how we promoted this. It's not what people think it is. So it's great that you're explaining this to them, and they're definitely screwing up and learning something about it, just as Phil and I are. I mean, that's what these programs are all about, is to get the information out there to the people. And, of course, we're definitely going to talk more with you here in just a moment. We're going to skip off to a quick break. We got a book giveaway. Now, we're going to be talking about Raul's latest book, and that is the Satanic Scriptures. That's something that you definitely want to check out. We're going to be giving away a copy of that in chat, so get into the chat room now, folks. HauntedVoices.com. Just click on the live chat. button right there. Log in through Facebook, Twitter as a guest. Beverly's going to be announcing something in there, and good luck to the winner. We're going to be doing that during the break here. And we come back more with our guest, Reverend Raul Antony of the Church of Satan. All that's coming up. Haunted Voices Radio Live, WGOG Digital Broadcasting. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
You're listening to WGOG Digital Broadcasting.
I spend a lot of time in the backyard, and in 2009 it was me, your fire pit, that accidentally started a wildfire when one of my embers landed on dry brush.
Spark a change, not a wildfire. Visit SmokeyBear.com, brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Well, Jason, I've got to tell you, you're pretty much everything this company is looking for in an entry-level candidate.
Great.
Your resume isn't quite what we're used to, but you've got a fantastic work ethic.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed by how you carry yourself.
So, should we talk about the job?
What? The job? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have no way of recruiting or even meeting you. This interview didn't happen.
It may sound ridiculous, and that's because it kind of is. There's a huge pool of talent your company is missing out on. Meet the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Man, we really could have used him.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
.46 minutes past the hour. Haunted Voices Radio Live, WGOG Digital Broadcasting. Of course, those of you listening at hauntedvoices.com, be sure to enter the chat room, get your final questions in there. We've got a few of those we're going to give away here to our guest here in just a second. We're going to get those over to him. And if you're listening on the mobile side, you can search us on TuneIn. Just search WGOG-DB. And if you're on the mobile on the go, you can listen to us through there. And of course, everything's going to be archived. If you missed the first part of the program, no worries. You can find all the latest episodes right there at hauntedvoices.com or on iTunes. Just search Haunted Voices Radio. And you can find us on iHeartRadio on the After Hours AM channel. You can find us right there. We'll have those uploaded briefly after the live show. We'll have those up there for you. And again, we're discussing the Church of Satan with Reverend Raul Antony. He's going to be joining us here for the next few minutes. And coming up second hour, Marcus Allen, we're going to be discussing the lunar landing hoax. That's coming up second hour. Now, got a few questions here for you. Get some of these out. What they're asking, and I know you knew these were coming. Does the Church of Satan perform sacrifices?
No. No, we do not perform sacrifices. The very idea of a sacrifice is nonsense to us, since we don't believe in any conscious gods. What good would that do? It doesn't make sense. We cherish children, we cherish animals. It's part of our philosophy, in fact, because we tap into our instincts, our true natures, right? And that's an important part of Satanism, is embracing that. Whereas other religions want you to destroy, your instincts and submit to some external god. Satanism says, no, you must embrace who you are. And children embrace who they are. I mean, they act on their instincts. They control the world around them. That is very powerful. And animals, too, are instinctual. A spider's trying to be the best spider it can be, right? So to us, those are magical creatures. So we would not ever sacrifice them for anything. It doesn't make any sense philosophically. It doesn't make any sense metaphysically at all.
Well said.
Well, that's the thing. I read that earlier. That if you don't believe in a god or a higher power, who are you sacrificing something to?
Yeah, exactly.
So right there, it wouldn't even make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, about rituals, we're also asking what kinds of rituals do you perform?
Well, I mean, we have the basic ceremonial rituals for marriages and baptisms and funerals. Those kind of mark milestones in life. That's part of the human experience, and we have satanic applications for those things. But we also have personal rituals. We have a destruction ritual to curse somebody. We have lust rituals, to chase after someone that we're interested in. Or we've got the sympathetic rituals to help those that may need it, that you care for, or to help yourself as well. A compassion ritual, to be precise. So those are what we call parts of greater magic. That's something like you get in an environment where you channel your psyche and energize yourself with music, sense, visuals, in terms of, say, an altar, right? If you're in a group, you may have a nude altar and things like that, something that stimulates your emotional drive in order to channel your emotions out of you and to let them go so that you can go about your life in a productive manner. Now, that's I think the base level of it, and but I do think there are some Satanists who are interested in taking that a little bit further and saying, well, once you get that out there, once you get those feelings and emotions out there, well, what changes in the world? And some Satanists are interested in seeing kind of influence at a distance and seeing the coincidences that occur after that, and see if there's any connection between those things, and they explore those things, all with a skeptical mind. Sure, and again, part of our human experience, part of the natural world, not anything that's nothing spiritual to that, but something that we may be tapping into, something we don't fully understand yet.
Okay, all right. Yes, that helps answer the next one.
You mentioned there are. Okay, you said there are rituals for curses.
Yes.
Why would you use one of those? For what reason would you use one of those?
Well, I mean, we're not Christians. We don't believe in turning the other cheek. So if somebody hurts you, harms you, or somebody you love, you may want to seek that vengeance, right? And sometimes that kind of desire for vengeance can be overwhelming. It can impede you in other ways. It can blind you, and it could distract you. It could lead to depression and other kinds of emotional harm, self-harm, right? So we give you this tool, this destruction ritual, the ability to curse somebody, to get that out of you, get it all out of you. It can be a very powerful ritual in terms of, literally beating a punching bag or lighting an effigy on fire or something. This has to be something very, very personal. And you get that all out in this ritual, and then at the end of that ritual, you let it go. It's done. And you can go on with your life. And maybe something may happen to this person, but you're moving on. You're moving on with your life, and you're a happier, healthier individual for it.
Yeah. So I bet I bet there's not one member that takes Prozac or any kind of antidepressant in this church, because it's the complete opposite of what basically a large percentage of us have been accustomed to. The morals and values, they're pretty much tossed aside. And it's about dog eat dog, eye for an eye kind of thing. And that's I've definitely learned a lot from this tonight. It's amazing how all this comes about, and you guys definitely it's working for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been at this for over 50 years now. So for a new religion, it's going pretty well. I mean, and we've put out a new book. 10 years ago, our current high priest put out the Satanic Scriptures, and we actually have a new edition of it right now. that added a couple more material to it. So we have outlived the founder of our religion, which, if you study alternative religions, that's actually very rare. So not only have we outlived Anton LaVey, which we have great admiration for, but we're not a cult of personality. We don't worship him. We will even criticize him. We are our own gods, and we apply this philosophy to the best of our abilities to our own satisfaction. And I think I think it's going to go on for, I think LaVey likes to say the first 100 years are always the hardest. So, or 99 years, I forget exactly what. But, we see this growing. We're seeing a lot of interest in Satanism right now on social media, in the news, and people are coming to understand what it is, and that it's actually the world's first carnal, secular religion. And I think you're going to see more and more of that as spirituality wanes, and that's a scary thought.
Now, there are other
interesting.
There are other satanic groups. Are there any other satanic groups out there that you agree with or you endorse, or are they just more, the weird?
I mean, over the years we have encountered many, many groups, from literal devil worshippers that commit all kinds of terrible things or claim to, and we would obviously completely disagree with their approach, and actually we warn against that kind of thing. Literal devil worship is not at all what we're interested in. We call that reverse Christianity, right? And we have actually an article on our website called the Bunko Sheet, the Satanic Bunko Sheet, which is like a kind of guideline for what to look out for these other groups that may claim to be satanic, but are really based on Christian mythology, or they're based on Buddhist morality, right? But they just want to embrace Satan as like I said, Satan does scare people. So there are some activists that like to embrace that term, Satan, and try to scare Christians and things like that. See, the problem with that, though, is that you then are tied to that Christian dualism, right? And then without Christianity, then you have nobody to scare with that anymore, and that becomes useless. Good so the great thing about the Church of Satan is that we have withdrawn from that Christian morality completely. We have embraced a whole different philosophy that can stand on its own outside of all those dualisms.
Good point. Great point. And we have just a few minutes here. Get out the information about your book. We just had a giveaway in Chanda. Congratulations to Meg. She won a copy of your latest book here. Go ahead and get that information out to everybody.
Great. So I just want to make clear it's not my book, but it's the latest in our, I would say, canon. It's the Satanic Scriptures, which was written by our high priest, Peter H. Gilmore. It's a collection of essays that he's put out over the years, some updated to more current affairs. It's a collection of also rituals. There's a satanic wedding ceremony in there, and it's got his commentary on religion in America, Christianity post 9/11, films and self-defense. I would say it's the contemporary satanic book to companion with the Satanic Bible. The Satanic Bible is obviously our source, right? Mm-hmm. It's our primary text. But the Satanic Scriptures addresses current issues, and it's very poignant right now, especially with so much going on in politics in the world and in terms of freedom of religion. And Peter Gilmore was actually very, very on point with that. He was writing in 2007 on these things, and he saw that coming. And I think it's a very important book for people interested in Satanism right now.
Well, congratulations to Meg. She's going to get a copy of that in chat. And just an amazing interview here with you. I learned a ton. I know the audience did as well. Thank you so much for clarifying that. And we've got about 60 seconds here. We definitely want you to get out your information, website, anything you want the audience to know. The mic's yours.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I am a writer for Heathen Harvest, which is a underground culture and music periodical. You can look that up at heathenharvest.org. I also do a podcast on there called The Forest Passage, where I interview other musicians and artists and writers. I'll actually be putting out a podcast, probably this week, with Carl Abrahamson. He put out a photo collection with Anton LaVey and Jane Mansfield, so that's something to keep an eye out for.
Nice. Any social media or websites, web addresses you want them to know? churchofsatan.com. We're on Facebook. You can search for us at Church of Satan there. We're verified on Facebook, so you know that's us. There are other copycats out there. We're also verified on Twitter. If you look at Church of Satan on Twitter at Church of Satan, you will find us there. We're verified. There are a lot of other imitators out there. Look for the blue verified on Twitter and look for the verified on Facebook to get the real deal. Wow. What we are definitely going to have you back. Definitely going to have you back because
great.
There's so many different things that we can discuss, and you've really opened the doors and opened a lot of eyes out there. So thank you very much for explaining everything so well, Reverend, and definitely going to have you back on here again soon.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You are most welcome.
So some people have the stereotypical view of this, and maybe some people have realized it's not exactly the horror movie type stuff you see.
Yeah.
Not in the way they may think.
You definitely disprove that. Thank you so much. We're going to be in touch with you real soon.
Thank you.
Reverend Raul Antony, folks, the Church of Satan. Be sure to check out the website. Amazing stuff, Phil. I mean, it's one of those things where, things that just make you think.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. I have my own beliefs. I don't agree with everything, but they're not the, walking around in the black hoods, sacrificing cats.
Nope. Not what people
cutting
think.
People's throats in the dark, and it's
and he was
that.
a real down to earth kind of guy too. Very well spoken, very educated. Don't worry, folks. Now we come back. Coming up, second hour, we're going to be talking with Marcus Allen about the moon landing hoax. Oh, I've been chomping at the bits for this. This is going to be amazing. And if you have an iHeartRadio app on your smartphone, then you have full access to Haunted Voices Radio too. Now, we've joined the After Hours AM channel to bring you the best in paranormal talk radio there. And, of course, you're listening to Haunted Voices Radio live right here, WGOG Digital Broadcasting. We'll be right back. Here's your latest news, folks.
WGOG DB Clearwater.
Next, showdown over tax reform. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Healthcare legislation on hold. The Senate next turns to tax reform. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says the Democrats have a list of must-haves.
First, no new tax breaks for the top 1%. Second, it must not increase the debt and must be fiscally responsible. And third, we must use a regular order process that will ensure true bipartisan input in the product.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says that likely means the Senate will have to go it alone and use budget reconciliation.
We have been informed by a majority of the Democrats in a letter I just received today that most of the principles that would get the country growing again, they're not interested in addressing.
The two men also met with Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin today about raising the federal debt ceiling. Reportedly no progress there either. There was a bit of bipartisanship today in the U.S. Senate.
On this nomination, the yeas are 92, the nays are 5. The nomination is confirmed.
Christopher Wray's nomination to be the new FBI director approved by the Senate. He'll replace the fired James Comey. The White House today fine-tuning the president's role in a statement about his son's meeting with a Russian lawyer.
White House spokeswoman Sarah Huckabee Sanders said that President Trump did have a role in producing a statement in which his son denied that a meeting he had with a Russian lawyer was related to the 2016 presidential campaign. Donald Trump Jr.'s statement was later shown to be misleading.
The president weighed in as any father would based on the limited information that he had. This is all discussion, frankly, of no consequence.
In the days after the meeting at Trump Tower became public, the president's lawyer, Jay Sekulow, said that President Trump did not play a role in crafting his son's initial statement.
Fox's John Decker at the White House. Fox News, fair and balanced. The Department of Homeland Security says it's going to move forward to build the border wall in San Diego without getting an environmental review.
Homeland Security announced it is using its authority to waive environmental review in order to build the border wall in the San Diego area. They're circumventing laws meant to protect endangered species and sensitive habitat. San Diego City Councilwoman Georgette Gomez is introducing a proposal Wednesday before the council members opposing the wall.
We're also going to be exploring divestment. So we're going to explore ways that we can really try to prevent companies from going after the development of this wall through our contracting power.
The environmental waiver apparently applies to the area Homeland Security is going to test prototypes for the wall later this year. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
The Air Force will launch an intercontinental ballistic missile overnight from the Vandenberg Air Force Base in California to a splashdown zone in the South Pacific. It's a test firing, but it may carry a not-so-subtle message to North Korea after its latest missile test. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson says he still hopes to find a diplomatic solution.
We're trying to convey to the North Koreans, we are not your enemy. We're not your threat, but you are presenting an unacceptable threat to us.
The White House says all options for North Korea are still on the table. The U.S. has told the Venezuelan government it will hold President Nicolas Maduro personally responsible for two high-profile opposition leaders jailed following Sunday's election of a new National Assembly. Why should the U.S. be concerned? Senator Marco Rubio says.
Thousands of asylum seekers from Venezuela are already applying, the fastest growth of any country in the world, so it's placing migratory pressure on the United States. Number two, it's our values, and it's in our hemisphere. We haven't had a dictatorship emerge in this region in this way in 40 years.
The Trump administration has labeled Sunday's parliamentary election in Venezuela a sham. Another big day for the Dow, up nearly 73 points Tuesday to close just under 21,964. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News Radio.
When a child is abducted, every second counts. That's why this station uses the Internet Radio Amber Alert System, helping to keep your children safe. A free service of the Internet broadcasting community and this station.
There are thousands of health and beauty products on the market these days. But how many can you say are truly natural? The name says it all. And Naturally by Darla is here to humbly serve, guide, and help to heal all individuals seeking a more natural way of living. NaturallyByDarla.com provides a wide variety of products and services like essential oils, soaps, balms and salves, powerful mists, and ancient healing techniques. Curious yet? We thought so, and invite you to visit our website, naturallybydarla.com, or call 847-334-1580. That's 847-334-1580. naturallybydarla.com. Humbly serving for over 10 years. Naturally.
Top of the hour, you're listening to Haunted Voices Radio Live, right here, WGOG Digital Broadcasting. Welcome to the second hour. My goodness, join us in chat. HauntedVoices.com, that's a place to be right now. Log in through Facebook, Twitter as a guest. Just get in there. You're definitely going to have some questions this hour. Now, our next guest is Marcus Allen, who is the UK publisher of Nexus magazine, which originates from Australia and is now available through America. Now, introducing people to Nexus magazine has been his work and his hobby for over 20 years. Now, he considers that there are two types of people in the world: those who read Nexus and those who are about to. I like that. Marcus has also spent over 20 years researching Apollo and the photographs as presented by NASA as evidence for the landing on the moon. Now, the numerous anomalies, inconsistencies, and unexplained details already identified in them have persuaded him, that serious doubts exist for the reality of those Apollo moon landings. Now, this is going to be some great information here. And if you guys are on the fence about the moon landing, maybe with this, you're going to lean closer to one side. That's what this is all about. So welcome to the show, Marcus, all the way from across the pond. Great to have you.
Thank you very much. Very pleased to be here.
Now, I'm sure
we've been looking forward to it.
Oh my goodness! I'm just chomping at the bits here. This is an amazing topic.
I'm certainly looking forward to it as well, because I'm looking forward to the hard questions you and your audience will be giving me.
With this, the lunar landing, it was, a milestone. We had to beat the Russians there. And there's so many different conspiracy theories about it. You have it, was it done in a Hollywood set? Because we had to beat the Russians so we could stake the claim. But yet, how can you prove that? So we're going to touch on all of this tonight. But first of all, what got you so obsessed in the whole hoax of it? What turned? What made you turn and think there was something just wrong?
Well, interesting, because I came to it quite by accident. I was listening to a presentation given, ironically, by an American who was talking about something quite different, and he said almost in passing, because he was looking at various photographs of the subject he was talking about, and he said, as I say, in passing, of course those Apollo moon landings, of course they were faked. You could see that from the photographs, which is all he said. And I thought, funny, I watched the moon landings live, because I'm old enough to have been around when it happened. I was in London at the time. I looked out the window and waved at the moon, and I hoped that Neil and Buzz would wave back, but no, they didn't. Well, not that I could see. And but that got me thinking, because I'd been trained as a photographer in the 1960s. I'd used the equipment that I subsequently discovered had been used on the Apollo missions, the Hasselblad cameras, the Ektachrome film. I'd used the same equipment, and I thought, well, I can have a look at these photographs, and I'll find out whether what he's saying has any validity. So I thought, well, where do you get photographs of the moon landings? Because this was well before the internet had them all online. I went to an astronomy show in London, and I found a set of 6 postcard-type photographs of the Apollo 11 mission. Mm-hmm. So I bought these, and I had a look at them. That's where I started. I looked at them, and I thought, yeah, I could see there is something a little bit unexplained about these photographs. They're very, very good photographs. I don't think anybody doubts that. They're very good photographs. They don't even need a caption. When you look at them, you know what you're seeing. It's man on the moon. It's obvious, isn't it? But the more I looked at it, the more I became convinced that there was a little bit more to this than met the eye. Anyway, years passed, and I read what I could. I bought many books on the subject. One of them was by Harry Hurt III, which was For All Mankind. It was that was its title. It was one of the first books I read on the subject, which probably gives me permission to talk about it, because the Apollo moon landings were for all mankind. We came in peace for all mankind, part of the script. Anyway, I started looking at them, and the internet came online, and I started being able to get hold of more photographs, and I've met various other people who had examined the subject. One of them was David Percy and Mary Bennett, who wrote probably the definitive book on the subject called Dark Moon, Apollo and the Whistleblowers. They produced a DVD back in 1999 called What Happened on the Moon. I had a look at that, and I saw some of the work that Bart Sibrel had been doing in America, some of the work that is being done by many other people. Bill Casing was one, Ralph Renee, who wrote the book NASA Mooned America. Anyway, I started looking at all this information, and the more I looked at it, the more I became convinced that there were many unanswered questions about it. Now, right at the beginning, I should say that the American space program, which was basically started, or the human American space program, was started with a Mercury capsule, which was 1 man in space.
Right.
The Gemini capsule was 2 men in space. The Apollo capsule was 3 men to the moon. That was followed by Skylab, the International Space, or the Space Shuttle, then the International Space Station, and finally the X-37B, which we might cover later. I have absolutely no question about any of the validity of any of those programs, with one exception, and that is the Apollo program, because of where it allegedly went, i.e. to the moon. Mm-hmm. All the others were in low Earth orbit, with the possible exception of the X-37B, which we'll come to later. Now, what we've got here is a particularly different program. The Apollo program, yes, it was a big program. Yes, 400,000 people worked on the program. So how do you keep 400,000? How do 400,000 people keep a secret? Is one of the questions I normally get asked. And the answer is very simple. The 400,000 people who worked on the Apollo program were doing the very best job they could. They were building the best rockets they could, the best landers, the best control centers, the best everything, the spacesuits, the very best things they could. They had no knowledge of any, shall we say, falsehood about it. They were doing the best job they could. They were going along with President John Kennedy's promise to land a man on the moon before the decade is out and return him safely to the Earth. Of course, when that was made in May 1961, it was made 6 weeks after Yuri Gagarin allegedly orbited the Earth. Mm-hmm. That was the start of the space race.
Right.
The space race was one of those media inventions which allowed Congress to budget considerable sums of money for the Apollo program. But that's all politics, and we're seeing quite a lot of politics going on in America today, which was interesting to watch. Now, what we've got is a program to land a man on the moon. It's where it went. It went to the moon. Low Earth orbit, 250, 300 miles above the Earth's surface, is not a problem. It's quite easy to reach if you've got a powerful enough rocket and you've got the right training. But going to the moon is a completely different experience. You've got to have a very powerful rocket. The Saturn V rocket, which everybody, 1 million people watched the launch of the Apollo 11 on the Saturn V rocket. 2 minutes after it lifted off, it disappears from sight. And from that moment until splashdown, 8 days later, we rely on one source of information, and that source is NASA. No other independent, verifiable information is available. Now, at this point, I'm sure people will be shouting at the screen and saying, oh, what about those photographs they took about the landers on the moon? We'll come back to that.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait. I'm loving how this is going already.
But NASA is the only source of the information. Now, forgive me being a little bit brutal here, but NASA actually stands for Never a Straight Answer. I've asked them the question, which was a quite legitimate question. One of the first questions I directed at NASA, to which I'm still waiting for the reply, by the way. So anybody from Huntsville or from Houston is listening, please give me the answer. Those spacesuits they used on the moon, allegedly, they obviously protected them from one of the major problems of space travel, which is radiation. Uh-huh. Radiation on the moon, the lunar surface is unprotected. Earth's surface is protected by the Van Allen radiation belts. The surface of the moon is totally unprotected from solar radiation and galactic cosmic rays from deep space. If these spacesuits were so successful that no astronaut suffered any form of radiation damage, poisoning, whatever, could those same spacesuits be used today to go into Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, or Fukushima and clear up the mess?
Good point.
Because radiation is radiation. It's the same thing. Obviously, they were protected. So I asked the manufacturers of the spacesuits, could these spacesuits be used to protect people going into a radiation environment? And they said, we would not advise it. They were not designed to have radiation protection. But we suggest that you direct your question to NASA, who supplied us the blueprints on which the suits were based.
That's a good point, because you have, public knowledge, those were pressure suits. Okay, you didn't hear much about the radiation. You just made a good point. I didn't even think about that the moon is completely unprotected. And you have all of this solar radiation just flying over this thing, and it's pummeling these guys on the moon. And those suits, they wouldn't protect them. They'd be eaten alive.
Exactly. And that's
now, the only thing...
Go ahead, Phil.
Oh, real quick, I just had one question. I was reading about, the heat, the temperature changes, and how hot it can get there and everything, and that these suits that they landed like early in the morning type thing where the temperature is lower and the sun's not as bright. Did they go out in these suits? Did they go out during times when possibly the sun wasn't as bright, so the radiation wouldn't be as strong? And they really weren't out for that long at a time, were they?
on Apollo 11, they were out for just over 2 hours. Well, Neil Armstrong was out for 2 hours, 20 minutes. Apollo 17, which followed in December 1972, Apollo 17, they were on the lunar surface for over 7 hours, 7 hours, 30 minutes.
That's a lot of exposure.
So an extensive period of time. And that raises another interesting point, because obviously, as you say, when you're wearing your spacesuit, you have to take the pressure with you. Correct. Because there's a vacuum in space, obviously, no air pressure, and humans can't survive without pressure. So they had to have a spacesuit which was pressurized, and it was pressurized at, say, 4.8 pounds per square inch. Normal pressure on Earth is 14.7 pounds per square inch. But humans can survive comfortably at just under 5 pounds per square inch, which is about the same pressure as a punch ball in a boxing gym. So it produces quite a lot of pressure. Now, these spacesuits obviously could keep them alive. They had to keep them cool when they were in the sun, because you said they landed early in the morning. That is correct, or the lunar morning, allegedly. I'll stop saying allegedly because it gets a bit tedious. They landed on the lunar morning, which meant that the sun was at a low angle, low on the horizon, which meant that there were good shadows, which was good for photography, which is one of the reasons that they landed all of the Apollo craft, the 6 that landed.
And what we're going to do, Marcus, we're going to touch on that in just 1 second. We're going to skip off to a quick breather here. And we're going to come back. We're going to get into more of these pressure suits and how they should have failed against the radiation, as well as some photographic evidence and things that Marcus has analyzed over the years. Great stuff coming up here. Marcus Allen, of course.
Yeah, because there is some
magazine.
things. I'm sorry. There are some things about the suits and the temperature and everything I'm curious about, things I've read. So I want to ask Marcus.
Definitely cover that in detail.
Definitely what we're getting into. You guys stay tuned. You're listening to Haunted Voices Radio Live, WGOG Digital Broadcasting, hauntedvoices.com. Get into chat. We'll be right back.
You're listening to WGOG Digital Broadcasting. Get lost in the realm of thrilling mystery with the Mojo series by Chris Cedarstein. Follow 6 small-town teenagers who decide to make a ghost hunting documentary and become blindly thrown into a world of haunting chills they were not expecting in Lost Mojo. Or follow college student Scotty Brown, who is aggressively haunted by vivid nightmares and daytime apparitions. As he begins to search for answers, he puts himself and those closest to him face to face with pure evil. Can he defeat these malevolent beings with a small team of paranormal investigators? Find out in her second title, Mojo. The Mojo series is available on paperback or digital download on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold. The Mojo series by Chris Cedarstein. Get your copies today if you've got the Mojo. Haunted, a psychic story by author and radio host Ariel Grace. This is not your average book of hauntings. Haunted, a psychic story is written from a psychic perspective and contains true stories and some handy tips. Written in 3 parts, Haunted, a psychic story contains chilling adventures, advice from the archangels, and helpful tips used by Ariel Grace to clear haunted homes around the globe. Haunted, a psychic story is available on Amazon, or you can download straight to your Kindle. Haunted, a psychic story by Ariel Grace. Get your copy today. There are thousands of health and beauty products on the market these days. But how many can you say are truly natural? The name says it all. And Naturally by Darla is here to humbly serve, guide, and help to heal all individuals seeking a more natural way of living. NaturallyByDarla.com provides a wide variety of products and services like essential oils, soaps, balms and salves, powerful mists, and ancient healing techniques. Curious yet? We thought so. and invite you to visit our website, naturallybydarla.com, or call 847-334-1580. That's 847-334-1580. naturallybydarla.com. Humbly serving for over 10 years. Naturally.
23 minutes past the hour. You're listening to Haunted Voices Radio, of course, live right here on WGOG Digital Broadcasting. And those of you just tuning in, you missed the first part of the show, we've got you covered. All the past shows will be up there at hauntedvoices.com. You can also find us on iTunes. Just search Haunted Voices Radio on iTunes. Be sure to subscribe and give us a review there. It's all free. And you can also find us on iHeart. You got the iHeart Radio app. You can find us underneath the After Hours AM channel. A lot of great paranormal talk shows on there. And what we're doing is we're discussing the lunar landing hoax with our guest tonight, Marcus Allen of Nexus Magazine. Amazing information here. And some of this is literally going to be mind-blowing for you fine folks out there. It's a wake-up call. It's one of those things where you can't help but to think about it. Did it happen? Did it not happen? What are the ways that Marcus has found where it couldn't have happened? We've already discussed one with the radiation. We've been talking about the different pressure suits and all kinds of great stuff. So if you missed the first part of the show, definitely want to download the archive later on. So welcome back to the show, Marcus.
Thank you very much.
Now, I also want to give out a quick shout-out to a listener out of great Canada, Scott. If you're listening out there, we definitely want to give a shout-out to you. And join us in chat. Just go to hauntedvoices.com. If you're listening, Scott, jump in there. We'd love to chat with you here during the live show if you have any input or anything like that. So great stuff coming up here. And the suits. And, Phil, you were talking about the temperatures and things. That blew your mind.
Well, they were talking about... I'll admit, Marcus, I went on a few sites that dispute things you say, and they give their point, because I was doing my homework. And they were talking about, now you've mentioned temperature and things like film and cameras melting, but what I was reading was that the surface temperature gets really hot. But actually, since there's no atmosphere, the ambient temperature in the air doesn't get that warm.
Yeah, it's an interesting point about temperature, because most people understand temperature. If you go out in the sun, it's hot, and if you don't, it's cold. Now, in space, here's the question: what's the temperature of space? And the answer is there is no temperature in space, because there's nothing in space to have a temperature unless you're in a spacecraft, right. In which case the spacecraft will be heated by the radiant energy of the sun, where it shines on the craft. But where it's not shining, i.e. where it's darkness, or where it's dark or in shadow, it's very, very cold. You've got two extremes of temperature. You've got plus 250 degrees Fahrenheit in the sun, and minus about.
That's what I read.
So you've got this extreme.
Yeah, clear down to 200 below.
Yeah, now that's cold. Believe me, that is a lot colder than any other place on Earth. It's colder than anywhere in Antarctica. It's colder than Siberia. Let's just say you don't want to go out at it, not when it's that cold. Now, there's an interesting point here, because obviously there are astronauts who are in the International Space Station, and the International Space Station orbits the Earth every hour and a half. So 45 minutes it's going to spend in darkness, 45 minutes it's going to spend in sunlight. Now, when the space station was first being built, or rather before that, when the space shuttle was first flying up there, and astronauts were in the space shuttle launching satellites, doing work outside in their spacesuits, they complained about how cold their hands got when they were in the shadow of the Earth. And NASA said, "Oh, don't be so silly. Of course, it's not that cold. It's only 45 minutes. It'll stay warm, and you'll get warm when you get into the sun." And they said, no, our hands are so cold we can hardly work with the gloves. There's another story about working with those gloves, but we'll come to that.
Yeah, I can't wait.
So NASA said, okay, well, let's do a little test. We'll put a thermometer on the gloves and see what temperature it is when it gets in the shadow, and we'll see what temperature it is when it gets into the sunlight. And they did that. And the temperature, the actual phrase used was, within a few minutes of entering sunlight, the temperature rose to over 100 degrees centigrade, i.e. over 200 degrees Fahrenheit, which meant that it warms up very, very quickly. Now, when you're on a lunar surface and you're standing on the lunar surface, you're standing virtually at right angles to sunlight, because though the sun is low on the horizon, the sun is hitting all of you and all your spacecraft. You can't have a cold morning on the moon. It just doesn't work. There's no atmosphere to be cold. It's either hot or it's cold. It's that simple. There is no halfway. All right, it may take a few minutes to warm up from completely frozen in the shadow to overboiling in the sunlight. So these spacesuits that they were using had tubes of water circulating inside them to keep them cool, which indicates it was hot. And we're also told that the spacecraft, which is in sunlight for the whole time it takes to get from Earth to the moon, had to operate in what's called barbecue mode, i.e. it was supposed to rotate like a chicken on a spit. But that would just warm the whole thing up. It wouldn't keep part of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a fantasy world to think that by going into barbecue mode you keep the thing cold. Of course you don't. Otherwise your chicken would never cook. Spacecraft cook the same way that chickens cook. So the internal temperature. Now, it's possible to calculate the temperature of the lunar module as it stood on the lunar surface in full sunlight for over 3 days. In the case of, that's 3 Earth days, that's 72 hours. In the case of Apollo 17, you can calculate the internal temperature of a craft. It's called black body radiation. It uses something called the Stefan-Boltzmann constant to do the calculation. It's to do with radiated heat from the sun. Anyway, without going into the full calculation, the answer is 250 degrees Fahrenheit is the internal temperature of the lunar module as it sat on the lunar surface. So how did they keep cool?
Ouch.
They can't have air conditioning because there's nowhere for the heat to be dumped. Because when you have air conditioning, you just transfer the heat from inside the house to the outside where there's a nice atmosphere to absorb it. But there's no atmosphere on the moon. You can't absorb it, so it has to be radiated away. That's the only other way of removing heat. But how was that done?
And they didn't have that technology back then either.
Well, exactly. I'm glad you mentioned it because we're talking about something which happened nearly 50 years ago. December next year will be the 50th anniversary of the flight of Apollo 8, which we're told orbited the moon. And they all read from the book of Genesis or something. That was the first of the Apollo missions that went. Now, Apollo 8 was launched with no previous testing done on re-entry. They didn't do it. I mean, this is beyond stupid. You're going to send 3 men who are, of course, heroes because they've been featured in Life magazine, who give them a that's where they got their pension from, by the way.
Right.
They were paid by Time Life for their life story, but they also had editorial control over it. But that's another story. They launched Apollo 8, not having previously tested the re-entry from lunar orbit, i.e., would the heat shield work? That was the question.
Yeah, you don't launch somebody into space without knowing that first.
It's like taking a Formula One car into a Grand Prix without having tested it before you drove it.
Right.
It's ridiculous. That is one of the basics of science. So what we're talking about here is pseudoscience. It's fake news. Apollo 8 never happened. It couldn't, because they couldn't afford to have dead astronauts.
The way he puts this.
Well, was the whole point? The whole point in the government going to this much trouble to fake all this stuff was just basically things I've read is just to beat the Russians.
Primarily, yes.
It was that.
Yeah,
it was that important.
It was that important because don't forget what else was happening at the same time. This is the mid to late 1960s.
Cold War, power.
Well, yeah, okay.
Vietnam War was getting very, very nasty. The My Lai massacre in May 1968 was one of the defining events of the Vietnam War.
Yeah, the fear of communism. I mean, and that's the thing. If the Russians dominated the moon, then that meant basically communism dominated the world. I mean, it's just you had to get there first, and that's where a lot of these differences are coming in. And I can't wait to get to some more of these. Here, we got a quick question from chat here for you, Marcus. John is asking, in your opinion, why do you think they abandoned the lunar landings after Apollo 17? Good question.
They were cancelled by President Nixon because they were all ready to go with 18, 19, and 20. President Nixon cancelled them. Don't forget who John Kennedy beat the presidency in 1960. Mm-hmm. There was very little love lost between the two of them. They abandoned them because interest in the whole space program was being lost. The money was being diverted into other areas. We mentioned one, the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. And also, it was quite likely that somebody would have explained that it wasn't actually quite as easy to do as it was being shown. The sort of Walt Disney version of space travel, which is what I think we were watching, had run its course. The equipment had been built. Yes, it was used for Skylab. It was used for the Apollo-Soyuz link-up. And one of the Saturn V rockets is still at Cape Kennedy now, on display, rotting quietly away. You'd think they'd use it, wouldn't you? But no, It's on display. So it was cancelled because it had no further purpose. America had done its job, or NASA had done its job, demonstrated the superiority of American technology, which is not in doubt. There were other factors that were involved now, which we mentioned the Vietnam War, which was getting extremely unpleasant. 58,000 Americans died during the Vietnam War, which is the price you pay for false news, which was the Gulf of Tonkin, but that's something else. Mm-hmm. There were other things which needed to be attended to. And also don't forget that back in one of the last executive orders that President Kennedy gave on November the 12th, 1963, was to order NASA to cooperate with the Russian space program. It was only known about several years later. President Johnson was involved at the time, following Kennedy's assassination. President Johnson, after whom the Space Center is now named, was much more militarily involved than Kennedy was. Kennedy wanted to withdraw from Vietnam. Johnson was much more interested in keeping the arms industry built up.
Right.
So there was less interest in space travel than there was in military action.
So you had a lot of that. There's a lot of different kind of chaotic things going on back then that would just throw this whole thing off. And, of course, the media, especially someone like Cronkite, that guy can grab your attention, and you'll pretty much believe anything he says, everything that's fed to him as well. So it's he's a very trustworthy individual. So people did follow those kind, and maybe he was duped as well. Maybe they knew, I don't know. But with this whole hoax, it seems to it exploded over the years, and you have a lot of different conspiracy theorists out there. And honestly, Marcus, you do not sound like one at all. This is something that you're definitely passionate about, and you've got your ducks in a row here. And what I want to get into, some of the different discrepancies that you found with certain photographs. You have the lunar lander; it left no crater. There was no impression. There's no moisture on the moon, yet there's footprints. You have all these different things that have been discovered. Let's get these out to the audience. Let's kind of go through and explain some of these here.
Okay, interesting point. It's possible to say that one is a conspiracy theorist, one is concentrating on this too much. The reason that I would try to get NASA to front up to reality is that I really like space travel. I want man to have landed on the moon. I really do. I love watching space travel. I watch a lot of film about it. But when you get so many anomalies, and you mentioned the photographs. Now, one thing that maybe people are not totally familiar with is the camera that was used to take those iconic photographs. And by the way, there are 5,777 photographs taken on the lunar surface.
Wow.
And a total of 32,000 taken during the Apollo missions, traveling to and from the moon. The camera that was used was a Hasselblad. It was a very good camera then. It's a very good camera now. It's basically the best camera you can buy. And the reason it's so good is because the lenses, which are made by Zeiss of Germany, are very, very good lenses. They have very high resolution. But what many people may be unfamiliar with was that the viewfinder on that camera was taken out for various reasons. So the only way you could ensure that you got the photograph you wanted was because the camera was mounted on the astronaut's chest, they had to point their body at the general direction of the image they wanted to photograph. Now, because you couldn't look through a viewfinder, you didn't know if you were actually getting it correct. So if you're going to try and take a panorama, you have to overlap photographs by a certain amount so the panorama can be printed later and there's no bits missed out. Without a viewfinder, it's actually quite hard to do.
Right.
Now, most professional photographers will say, well, of course you can take photographs without a viewfinder. You just have to take lots and lots and lots of pictures because one of them is going to come out right. You know, somebody's head may get cut off if you don't line the thing up properly. But on Apollo, they didn't do that. They didn't take lots and lots of pictures of the same scene. Remember that famous picture of Man on the Moon, which was actually Buzz Aldrin, taken by Neil Armstrong?
Mm-hmm.
His head's not cut off, but it's the only photograph that was taken.
It's actually in perfect perspective almost.
It's a brilliant photograph.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't taken with the lens that we were told the camera had, which is a 60mm lens, which on a Hasselblad, being a medium format camera, is a slight wide-angle lens, because the background is out of focus. It appears to have been taken with a telephoto lens.
And while you were on that topic, I've got a question for you that I've been curious about. Now, that same photograph, why isn't there any stars in the background?
Okay, the stars in the background, purely because the stars would not be bright enough to be recorded on the same film, which is Kodak Ektachrome film, if that film was trying to record the directly illuminated surface of the moon, because that's quite bright. Sunlight is shining directly onto the moon. The stars, you know, some stars are quite bright, yes, but if you go out at night and you look at the stars, you can see a lot of stars out there, but they don't shine very brightly. So in order to photograph stars, you have to have a much longer exposure, and you have to probably have the camera on a tripod. You probably take it at about 1 second, maybe 2 second exposure, which would be fine. You could do that quite easily, but nobody did it on the lunar surface. There wouldn't be stars in the photograph of any of the astronauts or any of the activity on the lunar surface because the stars just wouldn't record on Kodak Ektachrome film. Now, they would record on digital, and we're talking a film camera here. And for younger listeners, maybe film cameras are very 20th century and a bit historic, but this is what we're talking about. A digital camera records images completely differently. Each pixel records individually within the CCD. On photographic film, the image is recorded on photographic emulsion, which is, though it's sensitive, it has to be exposed correctly for the image to be appeared when it is developed. And if the image is not very bright, the photographic film won't record it and the development won't allow it to come through. So there won't be any stars in the background. This was first mentioned by Bill Kaysing in his book in 1974 when he said, why weren't there any stars in the background? But it's subsequently been identified because though he was a technical man, he was a librarian at Rocketdyne who made the F1 engines for the Saturn V rocket. He wasn't a photographer, and he was just making an observation. And one could say that that has been corrected. Other people might say the idea of stars in the sky have been debunked. I don't like the word debunked because it appears to imply that one has got it wrong.
Right.
So stars in the sky, no.
Good answer.
They won't appear. But you do have to bear in mind that the camera did not have a viewfinder. You were wearing a spacesuit which had, in effect, heavy-duty gardening gloves on your hands, which are pressurized. It's very hard to actually manipulate anything. You certainly wouldn't be able to feel anything through the gloves. And the shutter button on the camera, because this was not an automatic camera, you had to focus it yourself, set the shutter speed, set the aperture, and you had to press the shutter button, which was on the front of the camera, as they always are on Hasselblads, which you couldn't see from inside your spacesuit. So you had to guess that you were getting your finger in the right place, and you wouldn't know if you'd taken a photograph because there was no sound. There was no mirror, which had been removed. So how do you know you'd actually taken a photograph? You didn't.
Oh my goodness. These are the little things that we don't think about. The little things. You know, you have all of these pictures, but these guys, they couldn't feel. There was no sound, so they had no idea they were if it even took or not. So it's like a big guessing game.
It is.
And
yet these photographs are some of the most iconic images of the 20th century.
Right.
They've never been brought up and saying, look, man's landed on the moon, we got the photographs. Rubbish. Anybody can produce photographs. That's not a problem. Walt Disney did it brilliantly. It's called Fantasia.
I am learning a ton here. And I'm discovering some things here that I didn't even think about. Amazing stuff here, Marcus. We're going to skip off to a brief break. And, of course, we're going to have to reschedule him for a special here. There's so much information. But when we come back, we're going to get into a few more discrepancies here with the moon landing and, of course, wrap things up here with Marcus. So definitely stay tuned. Haunted Voices Radio Live. Join us, hauntedvoices.com. Chat room's open. Just click on the live chat button there on the website. We'll be right back.
WGOG DB Clearwater.
When a child is abducted, every second counts. That's why this station uses the Internet Radio Amber Alert System, helping to keep your children safe. A free service of the Internet broadcasting community and this station.
That's the sound of a classmate receiving an attachment of you posing in your underwear. Your ex-boyfriend forwarding this picture to his friends. It being sent to your coach. And worst of all, your dad. All because of the time that you posted those pictures on your profile. Anything you post online, anyone can see. So think before you post. For more information, visit cybertipline.com.
Today, my new dad threw a barbecue.
I burnt everything.
And then we played catch.
I broke Mr. Lewis's window. And then, somehow, my hand. My hand!
And then my dad even let me drive his car.
The hospital's on the right! It was a rough day.
It was a great day.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are. For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Dave, what are you doing?
Just sending a gift to Dave 2037.
Who?
Me in the future. I save a little money from every paycheck as a gift to Dave 2037, so he can spend it on things like anti-gravity boots or a hologram Doberman, something cool like that. I think Dave 2037 deserves it. He worked hard. What are you getting Steve 2037?
I guess I was thinking Steve 2037 would just fend for himself.
Well, all right, but don't expect to be borrowing my anti-gravity boots.
You want to have money in your future? You got to start saving now. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
Hey, let's just hope Steve 2037 doesn't get his hands on a cold time machine, because he is going to come back here and knock some sense into you.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
.47 minutes past the hour. Haunted Voices Radio, of course, live right here, WGOG Digital Broadcasting. Join us in chat. Final segment coming up here. Our guest, Marcus Allen of Nexus Magazine. We're discussing the lunar landing hoax. Absolutely amazing information. This is going to make you folks think twice about this. And we've just scratched the surface. So many different questions out there, a lot of different theories out there, and we're going to touch on that here in just a second. Definitely want to remind you, coming up next week, we're going to be talking about biohacking. with Ryan O'Shea. And then during the second hour, we're going to be talking with Gavin Kelly and Paula Purcell about the paranormal journey. There's a television show that's going to be on Amazon Prime that they're going to be doing there. Gavin and Paula. All that's next week. Haunted Voices Radio, 9 Eastern, 8 Central, 6 Pacific, right there at hauntedvoices.com. And back to the moon landing here with Marcus. Amazing stuff. And one of the things that came up, we talk off air. So one of these days we're going to record that, folks. That way you guys can hear the behind the scenes kind of things, because a lot of these things come up.
Yeah.
And we have to bring it out to you. We're talking about moon rocks. It's kind of the smoking gun of the whole landing. If we never went there, how did we get these rocks? And Marcus can even explain that. That's what I love about this guy. Go ahead, Marcus.
Okay, moon rocks. I've got a piece of moon rock. If we were on TV, I'd wave it in front of the camera and you could see my piece of moon rock. I say it's moon rock. Now, I've been to the Science Museum in London, and there's a display there of the Apollo 10 command module, and there's also a display of moon rock. And I know it's moon rock because there's a label on it. It says moon rock. So I can't, the Science Museum must know what they're talking about. But I don't know if you remember a few years back, about 6-7 years ago, the Rijksmuseum in Holland were doing a major renovation, and they had to dismount some of their displays. And one of them was the Apollo display that they had at the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. And one of the pieces of on display was a piece of moon rock. And they decided to allow the geologists to have a good look at this piece of moon rock while it was taken off display. And the geologist came back and said, well, I don't know where you got this from, but it's a piece of petrified wood.
Oh, no.
And it was a piece presented to the Prime Minister of the Netherlands in 1969 by Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins, and Neil Armstrong when they made their world tour following their successful mission. A piece of petrified wood. Nobody told us about petrified wood on the moon. Now, that story's been in the public record ever since it was identified, but there are some questions about it as to whether it is a genuine piece of moon rock, because it's very large, given that it was presented by Apollo 11, who only came back with about 20 pounds of moon rock. It's about the size of a half brick. It would seem to be a bit large for the presentation. Most moon rock that was presented to countries, and every state in America received an official piece of moon rock from NASA. Excuse me. It was basically a piece of what looked like dust, tiny little pieces of dust ground up, encapsulated in perspex. So you could look at it, but you couldn't touch it. Now, scientists are supposed to have examined this moon rock. What people are not very familiar with is how NASA distribute their moon rock samples to universities. There was one university, I can't recall the university that did the examination, but they were sent a piece of moon rock in a box marked moon rock, and then 2 other boxes marked Columbia River Basin and Hawaii. And they were asked to compare these 3 samples, which are all volcanic rock, compare the 3 samples and report back. Now, if you receive from NASA a piece of moon rock in a box marked moon rock, you're going to assume, I think, that it's from the moon. But how can you be 100% certain it's from the moon? Oh, because you saw it being collected. And NASA wouldn't lie, would they? No, sorry. Now, as a slightly conspiratorial view on this, Werner von Braun, who was the head of the rocketry at Huntsville in Alabama and built the Saturn V rocket, he was a very good rocket engineer, made a very unexpected trip just before Apollo 8. He went to Antarctica. What on earth for? He should have been far too busy building his rockets. But he went to Antarctica. Now, Antarctica is one of the very few places on Earth where meteorites, which can be easily identified because they're black and Antarctica's basically white.
Right.
And there have been genuine pieces of moon rock recovered from Antarctica because they get blasted off when a meteor hits the moon, and it gets attracted to the Earth and it lands in Antarctica. And if you go there and you look for the black bits on the white snow, you can pick them up and they're likely to be pieces of the moon. So there is a certain amount of debate as to whether what has been examined actually came from the moon. Now, it could well have come from the moon because the Soviet Union sent 2 unmanned craft onto the lunar surface and returned with 300 grams of lunar soil. The Apollo missions allegedly returned over 800 pounds of lunar rocks, which is a pile of bricks about 3 or 4 foot high. It's quite a lot. Now, could it be that what was examined was actually from the Soviet Union and not from Apollo? Because the Soviet Union definitely did offer NASA samples of their lunar surface. And what is a bit strange is that NASA spent over 2 years debating whether they should accept it or not.
You're kidding me.
No, it's correct. You can check the records on it. There's a lot of toing and froing about it. No. If we take it from the Russians, we're going to have to give them some of ours. I'm not surprised they were doubtful whether they could get away with giving them something that came from Antarctica. The rocks actually from the lunar surface.
I've never thought of these kinds. I had no idea.
Exactly.
That makes complete sense.
Most people in the UK, most people who know anything about space travel or space exploration want the Apollo missions to have happened the way we're told they did.
Yeah, you're neutral here. You're neutral. That's the thing. That's why.
True. I don't want to have to go through all this rigmarole of saying, well, what about the rocks? And then we got the mirrors, for goodness sake, the mirrors. Oh, dear. They put these reflectors on the lunar surface, we're told. Apollo 11, 12, and 15, I think, or 14. Anyway, 3 mirrors left on the lunar surface, at which astronomers in the McDonald Observatory in Texas fire lasers at these reflectors and get back reflections, because the reflectors were supposed to reflect light back to its source. What's not often discussed is that this was being done in 1962 by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. They were firing lasers at the lunar surface on which there were no mirrors, obviously, and getting reflections back. So it's perfectly possible to fire a laser at the moon, get a reflection back. 4 years, no, 1962, 7 years before Apollo. What's going on here? Now, that's reported in National Geographic in December 1964, called Lasers Bright Magic. So you've got all these anomalies with the rocks, with the reflectors, with the photographs, and then you've got the worst part of all is how the hell do you get back? If you're coming back from the lunar surface, you've got to come back at the same speed you leave Earth at, i.e. 25,000 miles an hour. It's called gravity. If you're coming back at that speed, you've got to slow down before you open your parachutes, or you'll go whack into the Pacific and you're dead.
Right.
So you've got to slow down. But the only way you can slow down, because spacecraft don't have brakes, the only way you can slow down is by using the atmosphere, which starts at 75 miles above the surface. You've got to use the atmosphere and the heat generated by the friction of the passage of the craft through the atmosphere to absorb the heat, to create the heat which absorbs the energy which slows the craft down. Because you can't deploy your parachutes until you're traveling at less than 30 miles an hour. So the only way you can slow down is using a heat shield so you don't burn up, because that's why we don't get hit by meteors that often, because they burn up in the atmosphere. But the atmosphere is not very high up. So if you're going to use a heat shield, you've got to have a heat shield which it's called ablative material. It basically destroys itself and protects the craft behind it. And that's what we're told they did. But they did it in a way that has no scientific basis at all. They did it on what's called direct entry. i.e. they come back from the moon, 25,000 miles an hour, straight into the atmosphere, all right, at an angle to the atmosphere. So they're going to travel through the atmosphere for about 1,000 miles. They come in at 6.5 degrees to the Earth. So you've got to get it pretty accurate. You come in at that speed and that angle, and eventually you'll slow down enough because of the heat generated, removing the energy of the movement of the craft. But if the heat shield fails, you're toast. Dead. End of story. Gone to heaven. That didn't happen. But I mentioned earlier, Apollo 8, they never tested the heat shield before those 3 brave astronauts had to come back from the lunar surface. Now, let's move forward to where we are today with the Orion capsule.
Yeah, and we've got like 2 minutes here. I mean,
okay, very quick 2 minutes.
Go ahead.
The Orion capsule was launched from 5,000 miles out. It came in at 20,000 miles an hour using a heat shield that was based on the Apollo technology. It basically failed because now they have to redesign the whole heat shield for Orion. This was in December 2014. If you look at pictures of the Orion craft before, as it came back, it's covered in space shuttle heat shield all over. The Apollo capsule was not covered in heat shield. It was made of aluminium, and aluminium melts at 600 degrees centigrade. The heat shield is supposed to protect at up to 2,500 degrees centigrade. So basically, the Apollo capsules could not have come back using the technology they were using without serious damage, not only to the spacecraft, but to the astronauts inside it. Hence, I can contend, unless anybody can prove me wrong, that the Apollo craft, as described by NASA, did not go to the lunar surface.
I'll be damned.
Now,
stuff to think about.
Elon Musk is going to send tourists around the moon in 2 years' time. Now, next year he's going to do it. He may be able to get them up there, but he sure can't get them back again alive. And he hasn't even got a craft to launch them yet. He hasn't got a rocket. He's testing it in November, called the Falcon Heavy. NASA haven't got a craft to do it.
Wow, I'm blown away here. Marcus,
like I said, a lot to think about.
That is a lot, and what we're going to do. We're definitely going to get you rescheduled here for a 2-hour special, probably in December during the anniversary. I think that'd be a good idea.
Good thinking.
And we're probably going to get that taken care of here because Phil and I barely scratch the surface here on getting to all these different questions. Amazing stuff, Marcus. Thank you so much for taking time and staying up so late over there across the pond here to come on the show.
I'm delighted. It's been a privilege and an honor to appear on your station. I'm very grateful to you for the invitation to do so. Oh. And yes, it is 4:00 in the morning in the UK. So
get some rest. Boy. Get some rest, Marcus. We're definitely going to have you back here real soon. Thank you again. Have a great night. Morning.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Marcus Allen, Nexus Magazine, folks. Be sure and check that out. My goodness, Phil. That's an eye-opener, Chief. That's, I don't know. That's something to think about, buddy.
Yeah. There's a lot to consider.
And, Stanley, he's
like
our...
I just hate the thought that it didn't happen.
I know, and Stanley, he's kind of our show scientist here. That's what Stanley does. And, he's got some great points, too. So we're probably going to involve Stanley here for that show, too. So there's a lot of great things coming up. So what you want to do is tune in to us next week. Of course, we're going to be back. We're going to have Ryan O'Shea, of course, talking about the biohacking. And then Gavin Kelly is going to be coming on here discussing their paranormal adventures, all kinds of great stuff here. Their new program coming on Amazon Prime. All that's coming up next week live, Haunted Voices Radio. We'll have the archive up. It's probably going to be, give us 24 hours here. We're going to get that seated here, and that's going to be up on iHeartRadio, iTunes, and, of course, on the website right there at hauntedvoices.com. Just click on the past shows there. So I think what Phil and I are going to do is put this bad boy to bed for the week and leave you folks thinking about that. Was the landing real or not? What do you think now? Let us know. Send your questions, comments, concerns, all of that to producer@hauntedvoices.com. That's producer@hauntedvoices.com. It's good stuff.